Hey everyone, I'm Bishop Trevor, and this is a Discipleship Moment. Today, I want to talk about being a friend of sinners. Jesus was called a friend of sinners. I want to read a passage for you in Luke chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. In this passage, it says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, 'This man receives sinners and eats with them.'" And you can tell from this passage that culturally it was not normal or acceptable for those who were considered godly to mix with the ungodly. However, Jesus mixed with everyone, including sinners. Now, when we talk about sinners, we're talking about someone is far from God. Now, in this passage, you have all kinds of levels of what a sinner is, but at the end of the day, a sinner is far from God. We're not just nitpicking what sins people do. We're just recognizing at the root, people are sinners because they are not in a relationship with Christ through his redeeming blood. And so anyone in that condition, they are not in the kingdom. And so someone more open to friendship than others, you're going to meet people who are more open to friendship than others who are living ungodly lives. They are living contrary to the word. And you're just looking for people who will not mind connecting with you. And I do want to emphasize, we've got to be careful about being scared away by people's smoke screens. Sometimes because people know that you are a Christian and their life is not compatible based on what they assume is or is not religious, they'll give you a smoke screen. They'll come across as very hard, or they may be mean to you. They may curse or use foul language. And sometimes they want to do that to scare you off. They want to see whether or not you're really going to care about them or whether or not you're just going to run at the nearest sight of them making you uncomfortable. If we're going to be friends of sinners, we're going to have to see through those smoke screens and just stand our ground as like, hey, that's you, but this is me. I'm here for better, for worse. I'm here sometimes when you're drunk and sometimes when you're sober. I'm not running away from your mess, because God didn't run away from my mess. And so I want to tell you, we're going to have to be with people who sometimes we're uncomfortable with. But that's why God fills us with his Spirit, so that we can have the boldness and the courage to persevere when our flesh says, let me get out of here. And so you're going to have to be around people who are far from God. I want to say this again, because sometimes we grow up in churches and are like, hey, you got to be away from those who are not with Christ. Now listen, people who are trying to bring you into their sin, yes, you're going to have to separate from them. But people who are just far from God, they're not trying to call you into their lifestyle. They're just not ashamed of their lifestyle. You've got to be drawn to those people because Jesus was. And so I want to tell you, if you're going to be a friend of sinners, you're going to have to get out of your religious incubators and start strategizing. How do I become friends with those far from God? And I'll tell you, go everywhere. You'll find them. Go to the gym, join a hobby, join the PTA, join the HOA, lead a block party planning team, invite them over for football, for the playoffs, teach a class to your neighborhood. Maybe you're good with money, or maybe you know investment. Maybe you know how to cook and your neighbors don't cook. Whatever it is, find a way to connect to people who are far from God and use those connections to make lasting relationships. In fact, can I tell you, food is a great way to make relationships. If you can't cook, learn to cook, because people are always drawn to good food. You want to, and when you come together and you talk, you don't want to be excessively religious, But you do want to be ready to give a reason for the hope that's within you. Just make it short. You need to know your testimony. What is your story? Know it and keep it short. And it can't just be this pre-planned, canned statement. It's got to be, I want to tell you about what God has done in my life. And you're looking for those opportunities that God is going to raise for you. And I want to encourage you to love sinners. Love people who are far from God. Because sometimes we'll be nice to people, but we're not loving them. But love says, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to give up. I'm going to do what I can to be there for you. Care for them. And I want to encourage you also to be, I call it supernaturally normal. Don't be a weirdo. I'm sorry to have to put it like that, but sometimes we can just be weird. And Jesus just doesn't appear to be weird. Jesus doesn't appear to be awkward. Jesus is godly and normal. And one moment he can be talking with you, and the next moment he's praying for you. And so this is important. Let's go out and eat. When I go out to eat with people who don't know the Lord, I still pray over my food. I don't stop everybody at the table and say, hey, we need to pray. No, I'm just going to say, okay, everybody orders their food. They've got their food. They're starting to eat. I bow my head, I pray, and then I go and eat, and I keep talking with them. In other words, I'm not acting like this is abnormal. It's normal. But I am conveying as well, my relationship with God doesn't stop because I'm with people who don't have a relationship with God. Knowing God is normal. And when I talk about awkwardness, holiness is normal. Having a standard, having a godly disposition, not cursing. Sometimes people are like, you don't ever curse? I say, no, I don't got no need to. It's normal to just speak clear without defaming someone, without putting down. Holiness, godliness is normal. It's normal not to have to get in a fight and to debate with people. When I recognize we come to a point of disagreement, hey, yeah, we disagree on that. But, let's make sure this doesn't get in the way of our relationship. I got to love you, man. I'm here for you. I also want you to know that just because people are far from God, it doesn't mean that there's no awareness that they need God. They just may not know God through Christ. 2 movies come to mind. One was a couple of Supermans ago, if you will, and Superman has Lois, and Lois tells Superman, the world doesn't need Superman. And Superman says, so then why do I hear them crying for help? And then there was another movie, Gravity. This is probably 10 years old. And it's Sandra Bullock. And she's lost in space. And she says, I want to pray, God, but no one taught me how to pray. And you know what these movies show? They illustrate that people who are far from God, God puts a desire in them to know him. They just don't know how to get to know him. And so the Holy Spirit is bringing people into your life and bringing people in your path as you are going so that you can make disciples and they can know him. So you've got to make friends with sinners. You've got to talk with them about Jesus. You got to connect with them and allow God to open a door for you to share an example for the word. Don't shy away from hard discussions. Now, I don't get into the nitty-gritty of politics, but I will talk about, man, that was tragic, or boy, that's a bad policy. I'll say something like that. I'm not talking about who I'm voting for or who they should vote for. I'm just talking in life. And then we start talking about the issue of man, our real issue. And that's how you allow God to move. Don't get scared because of their lifestyle. Maybe they're not straight. Maybe they're foul in their conversation. Maybe they're in all kinds of immorality. Don't let that stop you or scare you. Jesus was a friend to sinners and they loved him. He was normal. Make friends with people far from God and watch God take that relationship to a place where only he can, into his kingdom. I'm Bishop Trevor, and this is a Discipleship Moment.